Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about this new Sigma Cor de Rosa palette. And when I first got this, my original intention was to do a review and some swatches and some eye looks for you guys. And then as I started playing with it and finding similarities with other palettes in my collection and then going and swatching those, I found like 9 dupes for this palette. So I thought that that might be something a little bit more important than just doing a review and some looks, because you can pretty much find those anywhere on YouTube right now. But what I don't see anybody talking about is how similar this palette is to so many others, and you really wouldn't know it to look at it. Actually, I was so excited when I first saw this palette, more excited than I've been about one in a very long time. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Ugh, the brush always falls out every time I open a palette without fail. So anyway, the packaging is gorgeous, the color story is super gorgeous, and I think when it comes to palettes, sometimes we take into account the packaging, the background color that's around the pans can kind of change the look of things, and just the layout of the colors in general can sometimes make a palette seem different than other ones. But as you're going to see in this video, there are so many like super close dupes that you probably already have in your collection already that I feel like you're at the end, you're probably going to be like, I don't want this anymore. And that's really not my intention. I don't want to like completely turn you off from buying something if you really want to buy it. But at the same time, I want you to be informed, because a lot of us now don't have a lot of extra money to just be throwing away on makeup. And I know it can always be super tempting when something comes out to just go ahead and buy it and then think about it later. But hopefully this video will help those of you who just aren't buying makeup right now for one reason or another. So why don't we go ahead and just get into a really quick overview of the palette, and then we'll get into the dupes. Okay, so this palette retails for $49 on Sigma Beauty's website, and it has 14 shades inside. Really gorgeous color story. You have a lot of warm tones. You also have some pinks and berry tones in here as well. You have some peachy tones. It's just a really versatile color story. I feel like you can do so many different types of looks with it. I was able to do a like really neutral look with some of the browns over here, and then today I'm wearing more of the berry shades, and then you can also do like a really warm tone kind of coppery look with some of the peachy shades and this dark copper on your lid. So I just feel like there's a lot of versatility when it comes to this color story. And formula wise, I think it's really nice. I think that the matte shades have a really nice rich velvety feel. They blend nicely on the eyes. They're not that type of powdery formula that just blends away, but they're also not the type that are really tough to blend either. So I think they're a great happy medium. And then the shimmer shades, there's a couple of different kinds in here. You have this coppery one and the berry toned one, and this one are kind of like more of those rich buttery type of like traditional shimmer shades. And then these two over here, you have a gold and kind of like a silvery champagne. Those two are more of like a gritty type of texture, where they're more of like a sheer topper type of formula, where if you put it straight on your lid, you're just going to see some glitter but hardly any color. So what I've been doing with those is kind of layering them over other shimmer shadows on my lid. And I also prefer to wet them with setting spray just to give them a little bit more grip, because otherwise I get glitter fallout all over my face. So while they're not a pressed glitter, they're kind of somewhere in between that and a regular shimmer shade, if that makes sense. So I definitely recommend wetting those with setting spray. You'll get the most color payoff out of them, and also you're not going to have as much fallout all over your face. I also got some requests to do some looks with this palette, and I wanted to do 3 looks, but unfortunately I just ran out of time because I wanted to get this video up as soon as possible. So I do have 2 different looks to share with you, but I'm going to put them all the way at the end of the video, just for those of you who actually like watching the tutorials. If you don't, then after the dupes part, you can just go ahead and skip that. So let's go ahead and dive into these dupes. And the very first palette that I thought of when I saw the Cor de Rosa was the Colourpop Sweet Talk palette. And I think it was because of those peachy shades that were popping out at me in the Cor de Rosa. They really looked incredibly similar. Granted, the Sweet Talk palette has a couple of less shades. It also doesn't have the berry tones that are in the Cor de Rosa palette. But when I swatched these side by side, I was really blown away by how similar the rest of the colors were, just minus those berry shades. I think it's truly incredible how many of these shades are pretty much spot on for each other. So I think if you've got the Sweet Talk palette and you don't mind missing those berry shades, you should be good as far as the Cor de Rosa. And then the next palette that's really similar was one that I didn't really think of until I swatched this one for the first time, because like I said, the packaging just kind of threw me off and it didn't make me think of this other palette at first. But once I swatched this out, I started thinking about it more and more and decided I needed to do a comparison. So that one is the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice palette. This one is so incredibly close again to the Cor de Rosa. And it's funny because this one to me doesn't really seem like Colourpop's Sweet Talk palette, but when you look at these two side by side, you can really see again the similarities between them. I mean, just looking at them in the pan, they almost look like the same palette, just arranged in a different order. The Too Faced one does have that green shade, which the Cor de Rosa doesn't, but if you take that away, I think you're left with some incredibly similar colors. And when I swatched them side by side, I was definitely convinced. There are a few shades that don't completely line up, but I think the majority of them are almost spot on. And if you don't have gingerbread spice, I highly recommend the Fairy Tale 2 palette from C Color. This one is super affordable. It's under $10. I also have a code which I'll put down in the description box in case you want to check this out, but it's a shade for shade dupe for gingerbread spice. The formula is awesome on it too. I feel like it's very, very close to the Too Faced. So just wanted to put that one out there as well as a possible option. The next dupe is one that I got a lot of requests for on Instagram after I had posted initial swatches of the Cor de Rosa palette. A lot of you had asked me to compare it to the Gingerbread Extra Spicy from Too Faced, and in my head I was kind of doubting that these were going to be that much alike because this was so close to the regular gingerbread already, and I had already compared them and kind of made up my mind that the original gingerbread was definitely the right dupe, and I didn't feel like this is so similar to that one, but I got a really big surprise when I went and compared these two. I mean, they were so super close as well. Just looking at these two side by side in the pan, I didn't feel like it looked quite as similar as the gingerbread one, but once they were swatched out, I feel like this one might even be closer than the original gingerbread. It doesn't have that deep burgundy shimmer, but almost every other shade is spot on. It has all those peachy tones, it has the warm tones, it even has the brighter pink matte shade. It's not an exact dupe, but it's super close. I feel like once it's on the eyes, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So this one definitely blew me away. I was not expecting this at all, and I feel like you guys have a really great eye for it because I never would have thought to compare these two. So then once I found out that the Gingerbread Spice palette was such a close dupe, there were a few other palettes in my collection that I wanted to compare it to because back in the day when the Gingerbread Spice palette first came out, I did a video about 7 dupes for that palette, and one of them was the Huda Beauty Rose Gold. And this one really shocked me back then because I don't think of this palette as being anything like Gingerbread Spice, but it actually is super, super close. So it made sense to me that it would also be very similar to the Cor de Rosa palette. So again, when you look at these two side by side, just like with the original Gingerbread, I really think they have so many of the same shades popping out at you, from the hot pink to the peachy tones, those warm tones, the golds. I mean, there's really, again, so much similarity between these two. Not every single shade is exactly the same. The Huda palette also has more shades than the Sigma does, so I wasn't able to swatch them all side by side, but I was able to find 10 shades that match up pretty darn closely, even if they're not exact. This is a situation, again, where I think once they're blended out on the eye, it might be really difficult to tell the difference. And then again, if you don't have the Huda Beauty Rose Gold Remastered, check out the one from C Color. This is called Nightfall, and having both palettes, I can tell you that this one is also very close in formula to the Huda. I think it's amazing. The one thing I'll say is these shimmer shades don't completely have that like creamy feel that the Huda does, but they are extremely buttery and really, really pigmented. So you definitely get the same effect on your eyes, even though they don't feel the same. This palette is absolutely amazing. And then another palette that's also very similar to Gingerbread Spice that I talked about in that previous video is the Fortune palette from Colourpop. So this one's been discontinued, but they do have another one out that I think it's called It's All Good. I don't have it, but it's a larger palette like the Bare Necessities or So Jaded, and it has a very, very similar color story to this one. So if you don't have this one and you're not able to get it now, I think the It's All Good palette could also be a potential dupe, but this one again has those warm tones. It also has like the berry tones in it, has that same kind of mix of shades, and when I put this one next to Cor de Rosa, I could really see the similarities again. And same thing when I swatched it, I felt like so many of the shades lined up almost exactly. Like they were really, really super close. I think the bright pink shade in the Sigma palette is a little bit different than the Colourpop one. The Colourpop one's deeper, and also that really deep matte burgundy shade in the Sigma palette that's next to that one is a little bit different than the one in the Colourpop. The Colourpop one is more brown. But other than that, I feel like almost every other swatch lined up perfectly. So another really great dupe. Another one from Colourpop I got requests on from you guys is California Love. This is another one I never would have thought would be similar just looking at it, especially since it's missing some of those berry tones again that are in the Sigma. but of the shades that are in here, I found 9 of them that are so incredibly close. Now, again, you're not going to have the pinks and the berries, so if you like those in the Cor de Rosa, you won't find them in California Love, but all of the other shades that I was able to match up, like those peachy tones and the browns and the warm tones, those all line up very nicely with the shades in the Cor de Rosa palette. So if you have California Love, you already have 9 shades out of 14 that are incredibly similar, so it may not make sense for you to go out and buy this one if you already have this. The next dupe is the Picante palette from Carity Cosmetics, and this one also has so many of those similar warm tones, and this one also has the kind of berry purpley tones that the Cor de Rosa palette has. Carity's formula is also amazing. I highly recommend checking them out. I found my palette at CVS and it was around $28, which is significantly less than the Sigma palette, but I feel like the formula is just as good. And I was able to find a ton of similar shades in this palette as well. So even if you don't already own the Picante, but you're just looking for a more affordable alternative to the Sigma palette, then this is one that you could check out as well, because I think the formula is so good on it. Next up, I have a dupe from Makeup Revolution. This is the Forever Flawless Decadent palette. And this one actually, again, it has a lot of the same warm tones, peachy tones. It has the bright pink shade in here as well. And this one also doesn't have that really deep burgundy or the really deep brown that are in the Cor de Rosa, but other than that, I really felt like, again, there was a ton of similarity between these two palettes. Once I swatched them out, I felt like almost every shade lined up perfectly, and I do also really enjoy the Forever Flawless formula from Makeup Revolution. I think it's one of their better formulas, and that definitely shines through when you look at these swatches, because I feel like they definitely can hold their own against the Sigma palette. Alright, so then my last dupe is the Charlotte Tilbury Instant Eye Palette in Pillow Talk. And while I feel like this one isn't quite as close as some of the other ones that I showed you, there are at least 8 shades in this palette out of 14 that still match up really closely with the Cor de Rosa palette. And the difference with this palette is this one actually has those pink and burgundy shades that were missing out of some of the other dupes. But what this one doesn't have is just some of the peachy tones and some of the browns and golds. But like I said, I was able to find 8 shades that I think are really, really close in color, especially once you get them on the eyes. I feel like it would be tough to tell the difference. So anyway, guys, what do you think? Are you as blown away as I am by all of these palettes? I feel like so many of them, to me, have all seemed incredibly different from each other. But then once you swatch them all, it's like they're actually closer than you think they were. And I think packaging and color arrangement and presentation and all of that factors into us thinking that a lot of these are different from each other, when in reality, I literally have like 9 palettes sitting here that are almost exactly the same and can make so many similar looks out of. So I just thought that that was really eye-opening and definitely wanted to share it with you guys. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Which palettes out of the ones I showed you today do you already have, and are you still planning to buy the Sigma palette anyway, or are you planning to skip it, or did you buy it already? I would love to hear your thoughts. So anyway, I'm gonna say goodbye and end the video here, but if you want to see the 2 looks that I created, definitely keep watching through the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I always appreciate you taking time out of your day to click on my videos. I truly appreciate it. Also, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button that's right here in the corner of your screen, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.